Year 12's Mr. Connie here, just completing the last of our chapter summary videos, focusing on Connie's chapter. So let's make a start. This one will be pretty quick. So just the key details. Set on August 14th, 1940. Interestingly, it's a year and 7 days after Kip's chapter, and actually is the next chapter following on from Kip's. Read into that what you want. Connie and Jack spend the night together is sort of the main action of the chapter. She then goes the next day to his departure for the Middle East with the Australian Army. She takes Kip along, and this is where the photo's taken. They plan to reunite when he returns from his service overseas. And he's very certain about that, giving a sense of dramatic irony there. Obviously, already knowing the ending. So this part of Jordan's two-tone ending, so it acts as a kind of consolation in order to counterbalance the tragedy of Connie's death. We still know she's died. We still know Jack's died. However, we're still left with a sense of optimistic hope, even though we know what happens to them. And finally, we learn the origin of the photo, both the photo that's so precious to Kip, and we also know that is the photo on the front cover of the novel, which was the inspiration for Toni Jordan to write the novel itself. And so it's really the focal point of the story, and leads us to wonder, how much is the Connie and Jack story the actual central story of the novel as opposed to Kip's. And it may be that it's in a sense it's both of their stories. So what are some of the key themes? We see that key theme of breaking free, rejecting society's expectations. That links in with I guess the empowerment of women through sexuality here. We have the theme of hope, and again touches on some of those other things like working class women, some of that sectarian stuff. There's small references throughout the chapter. So let's start with breaking free. So we see, I guess, before their love making, Connie says to Jack, well, women do what's expected, you can do anything you care to think of. And so that's sort of an echo of what Charlotte says when referring to Craig later on when she finds out about her pregnancy. And again, this idea that women have far more expectations placed on them than men do. She also goes on to say, during her passionate moment, she says, "It seems all my life I've had nothing I've desired, and I've given up having desires at all." And so I guess this partly that expectation that then forces a young woman like Connie to have to do that because of her circumstances. And this is contrasted against Charlotte's relative sexual freedom later on. She's not bound by the same relational and social expectations that women of the 1930s and 40s had. We see Jack, as afterwards they're discussing being together, and Connie says, "Your mother will have a pink fit," and he says, "Well, she's had her time, now belongs to you and me." Sort of, I guess, against the backdrop of World War II, it acts as a bit of a catalyst to sort of move people beyond their normal patterns of behaviour and their normal ways of seeing the world. No, things have changed, times are changing, and so with that baton is being handed on, and we're beginning to ignore what previous generations are urging us to do. So she even reflects right there at the end, I'm the one kissing him. She's finally broken free in this moment. Around a whole bunch of strangers, but she is driving the action. It's as she makes these decisions, she feels more empowered. So just continuing with that, during the love making, she says, "Oh, there's a fierceness I've never felt before." She's unlocking um, parts of her soul that she hasn't allowed to breathe. Um, you know, Jack, I think, says, "Oh, we shouldn't go any further," and she says, "No, I'm not going to let that be." And she's the driver. It's her. And she refers to this wanting, this growing passion and desire in her that she's allowing to drive her behavior. And interestingly, really, she undergoes a type of transformation. She says the next day, "Not one scrap of me is the same." And she says, "As well as becoming a woman, I'm now suddenly someone who can design things for her own ends." So through the action of her choosing to make love with Jack, she now recognizes that she has power to do other things as well, to design a future for herself. That's sort of what makes her story all the more tragic, because we recognize the potential that's lost. And I mean, any tragic loss of a young person, those are the funerals where the most people attend, because of that tragedy of the potential that's been lost. And so that's the real tragedy here in the story. And kind of in a way, Kip makes up for that. So they go on very different trajectories, and Kip lives his life in a way worthy of fulfilling his potential, and doing and being good to those around him. And so I guess that comes onto or builds onto with this idea of hope. And she says, sort of the key quote of the chapter: "The secret to happiness is to be grateful." And so, in spite of the hardships of being a working woman of that time, she accepts her lot. And what she refers to is her relationship. She says, "Well, I know I've got my mother and Kip and Francis, and this night I've had with the man of my heart." And so um, she's recognizing that she's not going to be able to break free of everything, but with these relationships in her life, then it's still worthwhile, and that's what she needs to be grateful for. She also says, "Whatever happens, I will keep this night stored away like linen in my glory box." So a glory box is this thing women used to keep items for their married life. And so what we see here, what this is a metaphor of, is that she's going to value love and passion above wealth and security. So she's going to reject marrying Mr. Ward, who's kind of a safe, ideal husband, really, and that's going to provide a really good life for her and her family. And she's going to turn against that. There's kind of a bit of a Romeo and Juliet thing going on here. We've got these two that are going to have tragic end. We've got two who are following their hearts, and it's not like the story totally endorses that, because the two of them wind up dead, just as Romeo and Juliet do. And so there's this kind of thing that you can never truly escape your fate. And so maybe it's that the times that they live in, these two of them, they're never really going to be able to escape that. And I guess it's part of why they physically die, because they're maybe never going to be able to have what they believe they can have in that moment. The play ends, the final line, with this optimistic hope: "I can hardly believe my good fortune. Everything will be all right." Well, and we know it's not, but we know everything's going to be all right for Kip, who's there with her. And as I said earlier, this is the point at which Kip and Connie's lives really they're going to go on a completely different trajectory. So look, thanks for listening. It was just a quick summary, just to complete that set of analysis of those 9 chapters. So thanks for listening. Year 12's Mr. Carney here. Just completing the last of our chapter summary videos, focusing on Connie's chapter. So let's make a start. This one will be pretty quick. So just the key details. Set on August 14th, 1940. Interestingly, it's a year and 7 days after Kip's chapter, and actually is the next chapter following on from Kip's. Read into that what you want. Connie and Jack spend the night together is sort of the main action of the chapter. What's happening now? They don't eat pink biscuits, maybe. I'll take him in a second. Mate, it's time to actually go to sleep. What's happened there? Where else? It's annoying. Are you going to sleep or are you going to watch something? Oh, my file didn't work. What's happened there?